Welcome to the Trainwell podcast, inspiring you to move more, get stronger, and have fun. I'm Darian, along with my co-host Joey, and today we talked to trainer Ryan. He has been in the fitness industry for 18 years. He's worked with a variety of populations, from youth athletes to senior citizens. He holds a master's degree from the University of Rhode Island and is a certified strength and conditioning specialist. He helps clients incorporate fitness into their daily lives by building simple and effective workout programs with the intention of building strength and function.
Down really into three parts, guys, with this episode. And the first one is, what is the value of having a personal trainer, mainly a virtual personal trainer more than anything? Part two is what to look for in the trainer. Ryan breaks down key characteristics. And then we close with aspiring trainers. If you're listening, where do they start? As a reminder, please go to the show description where you can access a free 2-week trial period with us. And specifically, if you want to train with Ryan, click on the link below. We'll see you guys on the other side.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the topic of personal training kind of in general, like the value of having a virtual personal trainer, kind of the pros and cons, if you will. We're going to jump into what are the key things to look for in a trainer. And then we're going to kind of talk more to like the aspiring trainer, like what to do to become a trainer. So I guess we could just get started with like that first topic of like, what is the value of having a personal trainer, specifically virtually?
Virtually, I think, when I thought about that question, I think the first thing that jumped in my head was just accessibility, right? So like the world has become smaller, and that's in this case a good thing, right? So like, there's so many variables that you don't have to worry about now, especially in our platform, right? And there's different iterations of virtual training, right? So I think, you can do kind of the one-on-one session like we are here, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like the key thing I think is just, time and space no longer matter, right? Because, we don't have to meet at the same studio or gym for XYZ time and make sure our schedules line up and things like that, right? So I think that in itself, like, just opens so much more opportunities, right? And, as well as I do, it's like we have clients all over the world. So like, never in a million years did I think I would have a handful of clients that live in Australia, or it's actually tomorrow right now, which is pretty crazy, right? So, but it is cool to see that, gives you the opportunity to see like we're all the same. I don't care it doesn't matter what country you're in. Like everybody still has kind of similar goals, similar insecurities, similar skill sets and things like that. And I think that is super cool to see, because it's not like, like I said, it just makes the world smaller. And I think it just gives more opportunity, and also honestly financially gives you a price break too. You have to pay for someone's time who works in the gym that has to therefore help pay for the brick and mortar of the building, and things like that. So I think like things like that, I think, is just accessibility. That's what I think of when I think of it. It's just like not just accessibility in terms of like who you get to see, but accessibility in terms of where that can happen and how much it costs, which is I'm all about it, right? So
yeah.
Ryan, let me ask you this: who is virtual training for? And who is virtual training not for?
That's a good question. I think virtual training can be for the vast majority of the people. Like there are, I think if you're able-bodied, like I'll start with maybe not for, it might not be the best idea. So if you have a lot of different contraindications, if you have a lot of different issues, if you need a lot of supervision, right? So like if you have a lot of ailments and things like that, that you need someone there to help move you around, like that goes more than just like trusting you to do certain things, because from a safety perspective you might not be able to, right? Or something could go sideways in a workout based off of any pre-existing conditions, like you might want to need someone that's there watching you, right? But also from like from the other side of the coin, from like the super athletic standpoint, like if you're getting into the nitty gritty of power cleans, like different types of drills where, keeping track of things like down to the second or something like that is imperative, I think that might not be the best person for you. Because I think, you know, you just kind of alluded to too, you worked in weight room settings, Joey, right? So like there's something about that camaraderie, right? So when you're with the guys and you're with your coaches, and that external motivation can be a huge factor as well. So I think certain things like that, when something is so performance driven, that might impact it as well. If you're kind of left to your own devices or your app or whatever, that might be not be the best scenario. But I think anyone in between, I think there's definitely a place for you, to be honest with you. Like, and I've kind of learned that over the past year, like year and change, like, you know, you have people of all walks of life. And I know I've kind of think back to the people where it didn't quite work, and it's usually kind of on either end of that spectrum, right? So it's like they're either super high performing or like kind of on that side, or they have a lot of stuff going on where it might not, you might need a little more supervision, right?
I swear 90% of the world's population is in that middle road. And even though you think you're going to be super elite, you might have to come down to where everybody else is, where we all are, right? In that 90%.
Yeah. What's that commercial? Everybody's going to go pro in something.
Yeah. It sounds like what you're saying is just like the people who are super, super, super specific, like have very specific needs, like maybe virtual training's not it, but like the vast majority of people, they could get so much out of it. So what would you say, like, would be like the specific like pros of having a virtual trainer? I know you said like accessibility, but I would love for you to like break down maybe even like in personality type, like what's the personality of a person who's going to get so much out of virtual training?
That's a great question. Wow. I don't know. I'm trying to think, like someone that can be a little independent, someone that doesn't need someone that, all right, let's back it up. Someone just from a sheer schedule standpoint that like life gets in the way sometimes, and it might be hard to, you know, this doesn't necessarily go to the person themselves, but just kind of the overall nature of, you know, life, right? So, you know, you guys have kids, you guys have a job, right? Not every week goes according to plan, right? So if you're there, if you have an in-person trainer and you meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday at, you know, 6 a.m. and then Wednesday comes around and from down the hall from your kids' room, you hear blah, like then your day goes sideways and, you know, stuff happens and you're talking about canceled sessions and late fees and stuff like that. So I think people that need a little bit of that grace might benefit from it. So just from purely logistical standpoints, I think that is a big advantage too, right? So, but also I think what I've noticed from my perspective in this realm is I can actually keep tabs on people better, right? You know, so I think if anything, I'm getting more touch points, right, than I would, you know, from an in-person, because then we're talking about like your phone and someone's going to blow up your phone. And it's like, you're basically keeping your own Rolodex of your clients and things like that. Where here it's kind of done for us. So I think someone who needs those touch points, who needs, you know, that, because it sounds kind of counterintuitive, right? Like how does that work when, you know, someone might be thousands of miles away from you? It's, you know, someone needs that touch points and needs that kind of nudges from here and there, you know? So I think it's easier to keep track of from my end, because it's like, I'm not worried about going this place at 5 p.m. then going to this place at, you know, 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. or whatever. So from my perspective, I can kind of keep track of things better. So, you know, someone who needs that extra hand holding a little bit too. So it kind of sounds counterintuitive, but
no, that's actually such an interesting way to put it, which is like higher flexibility and higher accountability. Like it's kind of like both, which is like so interesting. Typically you would think the opposite, but that's really what a virtual training has to offer you, like the flexibility to do it, but your trainer's kind of always there because they'll just message you. Yeah.
And people always tell me all the time, like, so I don't want to bother you. I'm like, I'm on it every day. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Like my commute is down the stairs. So don't like worry about me. Like, you know, I have access to my phone. If I know that someone is new and they have a lot of questions, I can kind of pull out my phone, and I know that what we can do on our phone is more limited, but I can answer questions. Like, you know, I can kind of keep tabs on you a little better. So, and from my perspective, I'm able to like control things a little more. And I think, you know, I can give people answers more quickly, and we don't have to wait to the next session, or like, you know, I don't have to be like, send them a text in the middle of their day that says, hey, how are we feeling? How's that, you know, going on? Are we still good for tomorrow? Like, because they can always push the workout or whatever, right? So I think, so it kind of sounds, like I said, I'll go to it again. It sounds counterintuitive that you wouldn't think that would be the case, but 100% is. Like, I've developed relationships on this app that I'm like, they could move in next door tomorrow. We'd be buddy. They're like, hey, what's up, dude? Like, you know, so I know exactly what they're thinking. And, you know, so I think maybe a knock against virtual training is that you don't kind of build a relationship with nothing could be further from the truth.
That's what I was just about to jump to before we go to part 2. Like, walk us down the cons. Like, you mentioned, of course, you know, if you're really super specific and whatnot, but walk us down, just so we're totally transparent with the listeners. What are the bads of virtual training?
Yeah. So I kind of put myself in, like, if I'm working with someone in the same room in a session, right? Like, I tend to like to be a little more kind of hands-on in terms of form and, you know, instant feedback. And if, you know, we've all been there, right? If you're a trainer, like, something could happen, like, oh, I just felt my hamstring go or something like that. So no fault of anybody's, right? But like, okay, so now we have to pivot real quick. So those little things of being able to think on the fly and just be really sure about form and things like that to those, you know, clients, you know, like, are tight in certain areas, right? So there's not that real-time feedback in terms of, hey, I noticed this on your last rep of squats, you shifted a little bit to the right, so let's kind of focus on the left side a little bit that time. So little things like that. I mean, depending on who you are, and it kind of goes back to my first point of, like, if you have a lot of issues and a lot of things that need to be paid attention to like that could be effective, right? You know, there are, honestly, I'll be honest, I've had clients, I'm like, man, I really wish I had you in person because I could probably fix this issue like in a session, right? So things like that, the things I jump to, like, you know, pure, like, performance-based stuff, like within that nitty-gritty of a session, right? Because then we learn after the fact of, like, hey, you know, my wrist hurts during that. It kind of, then you have them send you a form video, like, whoa, your form is way off, dude. Like, let's kind of fix this now. Hopefully we didn't do any kind of damage in that last session. So, you know how it is. You like to kind of get things squared away before we increase weights and things like that.
I know you're a Dan John fan. I know you're a Dan John fan. Would you say that Dan John would do virtual training or no?
No, I think he would, just because, like, he's very simple when it comes to things. Like, he doesn't get into the nitty gritty too much sometimes. It's like, you know, if it feels bad, don't do it. You know, and it's like, we'll work on it, right? But if it feels good and it's important, do it every day.
I don't know who that is. Who's Dan John?
Oh my gosh. How long have you been in the fitness industry, Darian? You don't know who Dan John is? This is this is a trigger.
Break it down for me.
He's like Ryan, go ahead, Ryan. He's a world.
No, he's coach. Yeah, he was like a strong man, and I think Highland Games too.
Yeah, the Highland Games.
Oh man.
Yeah, like pure strength background, right? But I like him because every talk I've gone to him from there, he keeps it in the realm of simple, which I love, right? So there's certain guys that you go to and you listen to them and your brain just hurts, right? And there's nothing, they're brilliant. I won't name any names, but there's certain ones that I listen to, I'm like, what? Like, I feel like I don't know anything anymore, right? But like him, I love the simplicity of it. Like, you could go to one of his lectures on a fitness conference as a lay person that knows nothing and get something out of it, right? So his simplicity and things is awesome. Like, it's just one of the big things he says, if it's important, do it every day. And he breaks down, like, you should do everything. Was it like a hinge, a squat, a weight to carry,
push
and a pull or something like that? Yeah. That should be involved in every workout or most workouts throughout the week. I'm like, brilliant. Love it. So he's just very simple, right?
He sounds great. Right up my alley. Keep it simple. Love that.
Yeah.
All right, let's transition to part 2. Like, this was a great idea, Ryan. Like, because you put what you said was the intangibles of a trainer, right? Like that cannot be overlooked enough. And so this part, let's transition to what should people look for in a trainer, or aspiring trainers. Of course, we'll get to them later, but if you are a trainer, like what would you tell them? Hey, you need this. Or if a client's listening, hey, look for this.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it kind of goes to my, I'll kind of loop this into my top 3 characteristics, right? Like, you have to be likable. You have to like the person, like, first and foremost, like, right? Like, so people are not only investing money, they're investing time. So, like, if I'm going to buy training, like, I'm not going to buy training with a person that I don't like hanging out with for an hour. I don't care how smart they are, right? So first and foremost, like, you have to learn how to, you know, from a trainer perspective, I'm kind of bouncing a little bit here, but like, from a trainer perspective, you have to learn how to talk to people and, like, you know, because it's a people business, right? So, like, people think they get into fitness, it's like, oh yeah, I like working out, and, you know, whatever the catalyst is for that, right? So great, awesome, love it. You have a passion for it, great. But that's only 10 to 20% of it. Like, 80 to 90% of it is you're in the people business. So you have to, like, and if you're a people phobic, it might not be the best business for you. So from a customer standpoint, right? Like, I think a lot of places offer kind of like those free sessions or whatever. But, like, in that free session, think of it as like a job interview where you're interviewing the trainer and, like, hey, you know, how do I like spending my time with this person? Are they, you know, are they open-minded? Are they listening to me, or are they just making me do what they think is cool and they think I should do, and not listen to what my goals are, right? So, you know, I kind of bounce.
Ryan, can I ask you a question? Sorry, really quick. Do you think that applies for virtual training too? Because, like, we're not spending an hour with them, but, like, I feel like, can you, like, break that down? Like, this is the person who's going to be talking to you all the time, you know?
Yeah. I honestly think from our perspective, that's what makes that pre-call interaction and then that onboarding call interaction that much more important, right? Because you got one shot. if we're just talking about the call, right? And that is purely personality based, right? So, you know, like, we have our quote unquote script, and we have things that we want to touch on and things like that. But at the end of the day, I look at it as, like, you're selling yourself, you're selling a conversation, you're selling an interaction, right? Of, like, I mean, the workouts could be the workouts. Like, it's not rocket science, right? Like, what you get from me is going to be similar to what you get from you guys, right? It's not, we're all kind of all on the same page here, but not everybody clicks with everybody, right? And that's okay. Like, that's okay. Like, you know, my goal in every onboarding call is just give them a taste of who I am, right? And it's just like, I joke, yes, I'm very unserious sometimes, but at the same time, I want to get a clear shot of what your expectations of yourself are and what your goals are, right? And I think in the virtual space, they don't get to see me interacting with a client in a session. They don't get to see me, like, how I carry myself throughout the gym or whatever, right? It's just basically like, I got this call with this dude, his credentials look pretty good, and we're going to give it a shot. And, like, okay, go from there. You know? So, you know, so if anything, I think the intangibles matter even more. Because you got that 140-minute chance to make sure, you know, that we're good. And, like, I think everybody's had clients who are like, oh man, I don't know. We're not going to read off of that person. I don't know if that's just them or just it wasn't clicking, right? And I think it's okay. Like, it's human nature, right?
Talk to us about experience. Like, does experience matter more than education?
I think it does to an extent, right? Like, obviously, I think a certain level of education is, you know, a requirement, right? Whether that's a certification or a degree or whatever, right? So to me, where you really get better is in the trenches, right? So I think, you know, I remember, like, when I was first starting in this industry, and, like, you know, there's probably a sense of entitlement I had. I think every young trainer probably has, like, especially one with a degree, right? I'm going to walk into that gym. I got my certification, but like as if I'm, like, carrying my degrees next to me. It's like, oh, look at this. And, like, they're just going to flock to me, right? So, but that's not the case at all. But I think you have to go through those highs and lows. You have to trial and error and figure out what works and what doesn't work, right? So I think in just talking to somebody, like, if you were to have two trainers in front of you, one was in the industry brand new 3 months and one was in there 10 years, I guarantee you the conversations are going to be different, right? And I think it doesn't matter if the person, and this is no knock on new trainers, obviously we have to start somewhere, right? We have to give people those opportunities, right? But if I'm from a customer base, like, not discrediting one way or the other, I guarantee you, if all else is being equal, the 10-year conversation is going to be much different than the the 3-month conversation.
I'm so curious. I want you both to answer this. What was your biggest like faux pas as a new trainer? What do you look back on and totally cringe? Like, I can't believe I did that, said that, or whatever. Like, I should have just been taken out of the industry then.
Oh, I got one. It was my very first session. I will never, ever forget this. So I was training at a studio in Providence, Rhode Island. And, you know, it was like one of those things where you train and like the owner kind of got you. It was like a contract thing, but the owner got you the clients and like, oh, I got this guy. He's meeting you on whatever day at whatever time. Okay, cool. I'll be there. So he shows up. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? I was probably nervous as all get out, but we get to go on. So I said to him, so what do you want to do today? And he flat out said, I don't know. You're the trainer. I was like, oh, you're right. Last time I asked that. Glad I learned that on the very first session.
Oh my God, that's funny. That's hilarious. Perfect time to learn that lesson right away, right out of the gate. Joey, what's yours?
Oh man, I can go on a ton. I mean, I say one that sticks to me the most is when I was a sophomore in college. You know, I started interning in the weight room, the collegiate weight room, right at CSU, and then I got my Olympic weightlifting certification from USAW, you know, Olympic weightlifting. And I was training at the time too at a 24-hour fitness, big box gym, right? And after I got that certification, it was 4 days, really good. I was convinced that everyone that came to me had to clean and jerk or snatch, regardless of titanium hips, regardless of age, regardless of skill. Like, you know, you're going to put that barbell in your hands and we're going to do Olympic derivatives all the time. And Ryan, to your point, I mean, I think every new trainer will go through this. People don't give a explicit about how much you know until they know how much you care, right? That's the people business right there. And I think the whole theme of this is that. But yeah, so if your trainer's telling you that you need to snatch, clean, and jerk all the time, don't listen to them.
No, I think we all, like, you know, when you're young and like hungry and like you have a thirst for that knowledge, you know, and you learn the new cool stuff, like the first thing you want to do is try it on the first person that walks in the door. Like whether that is like a, you know, 65-year-old with a hip replacement. It's like, I just learned about plyometrics. Let's go. Like, you know, it's so I think you like finding a way to use restraint and kind of, you know, figuring out when those things are applicable is another thing. Right. So, and also I'm glad you brought up that moniker there. Like, they don't know how much, like, you hear it all the time. Like, they don't care how much you know and how much you care. That one. I just butchered it, but you know what I mean? But I think it goes further than that. Like, you have to have someone who believes it. Like, I think that phrase has been around for however long. I've been hearing that since I started in the industry, right? But like, there's some people that say that and then their actions speak differently, right? It's like, that's what they do to get the sale. But like, you know, I think you have to follow through with that. Like, you're writing a check when you say that, and you got to make sure you can cash it too. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, that's a really solid point, because what you were saying about like personality and, you know, being a people person, being yourself and experience, I think it has to be backed up by being genuine, like authentically wanting to help someone. And I think that anyone, if you're not being authentic, people can see through that. And when you show up authentically, genuinely caring about the person in front of you, actively listening to them, that will shine through. And I don't know if you would agree, but I think that you would, that those trainers rise to the top who are genuinely wanting to help.
Oh, people can tell for sure. People can sniff authenticity or not.
Everybody gets into this industry at some point, at least floats through your head. It's like, oh, cool. I really enjoy doing this. I think it would be a cool job, right? I think it looks like fun. I don't have to sit behind a desk wearing a tie, you know, whatever. I get to, like, you know, work out or whatever, right? So that's, you know, it always starts there, right? But then you can see the ones that kind of evolve that thought process, and then the ones that just like, okay, cool, you know, I just want to fill my schedule, and, you know, I'm doing the same workout for everybody, and, you know, whatever. But they're paying my bills, but like, it's not that will wear off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So if we're gonna we're gonna break it down into like, these are the you know, bullet points people should look for. It's like someone who's a people person, someone who has experience, someone who's authentic, how do like specialties fit in here? Because I mean, I, as a trainer, I think all of us, we will geek out on fitness and movement, and we end up with 9, 10 plus certifications, all these different specialties. It's so fun for us. But how does a client know what do they need to look for someone with a specialty? Does that matter? Like, what should they be looking for?
I mean, specialties are one of those things that, like, they're derivatives of the base knowledge, right? And I think at the end of the day, it highly depends on the person, right? If someone has very specific, contraindications or specific ailments or issues, right? Like, that might be something that you want to gravitate towards, right? But if you're kind of like a regular Joe, just looking to get stronger, looking to get in better shape, whether or not someone has, a basic certification and 10 years experience versus all these crazy certifications and things like that, I don't know. I think it's it depends. I heard this in another one of your podcasts. Like, the answer is always, it depends, right? So I think it depends. It really does. Like, It depends who you are, if you have something specific that you want to improve and a trainer has a certification that would lean into that, I would not say don't ignore it. I think it's definitely worth probing, right? So I think, so I don't dislike the additional certifications. If nothing else, it shows that trainer definitely has a thirst for knowledge and wants to continue to progress. So I think that in itself will tell you something about that person, Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that is a really solid point. Like, a trainer has a lot of certifications, it means they really are passionate. Yeah. And when Joey and I were like prepping for this episode, that was like one of the things he brought up too, was like their passion for fitness. Like, you just can tell if someone's really passionate, they're going to be more creative. They're going to, I don't know, Joey, do you want to elaborate on that really quick? I like that point you made.
Yeah. Like when I used to, well, I think all of us were managers at some point, right? And so whenever we hired new trainers, right, like, yes, that was one of the first things I looked for is certifications, but not so much because they cared about, like, I have to prove to everybody that I'm so smart, but it's like, I want to sharpen my axe as best I can and get all these niches. So when I meet a bunch of different people, I can train whoever with my skill set and for the deeper knowledge, and passion sparks that. Like you don't want to have to tell someone, go learn more about it. Like, if I have a trainer, right, I have 2 coaches to this day, or trainers, sorry, me personally, and they're always finding out more stuff about the field because it's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. So I want that trainer that's constantly evolving, growing, learning, as Dan John says, lifting and learning, right? And we got it depends from Dan John too, Ryan. But like that's gonna fuel it. Like, that's what I'm looking for if I ever hire, or when I did hire trainers, is, are they constantly on the hunt? Are they hustling? Do they want it? Like, that's what's gonna fuel how they're going to interact with you. You don't want to train with someone who's like, yeah, do your push-ups, Bob. Okay, how was your weekend?
That's, you know what, I have to say, that's how I got, not the weekend part, the part about passion and enthusiasm. That's actually how I got my very first job in the fitness industry. I was just so excited to learn and dive in, and I had no experience, but I would tell them, I want to be a personal trainer. And they were like, okay, you can train me. I was like, yes. And I remember I walked into this first gym. They were just opening. I had no experience, literally. I couldn't even show my resume. I trained like 2 friends, but I had all these note cards that I had handwritten all these workouts on. And I pulled out these note cards. I was like, I have this workout. I have this workout. What do you think of this one? And he told me later, like, the whole reason he hired me was just because I was so enthusiastic about learning and came ready to go. And I was even like, yeah, I'll clean the gym 2 days a week. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. So I think that is like it just to, move into our kind of third part of this. We don't have to go there now, but like, if you want to be in it, be willing to do whatever it takes. You're going to open a gym at 5 a.m. to start. You're going to get a lot of, if you're working virtually, you're going to get a lot of clients right out of the gate. you roll with the punches.
Yeah, I think your story kind of raised a good point. It's like you clearly chose the right people to hitch your wagon to too. So it's like from a aspiring trainer standpoint or a new trainer standpoint, you don't just you want to be somewhat selective, right? You want to ask the certain questions of like, all right, I'm brand new to this. I need to learn a lot. Like, who's going to be willing to help me, right? So clearly you came across people that were willing to help. And I think that's awesome, right? I've been a manager, you've been a manager, and like we've all known those managers just like they just want to, fill in the gaps and whatever. They don't really, great, you got a certification, great, you're hired, like whatever. They don't kind of do their homework or due diligence, right? And they suffer for it because it's a big staff turnover because they suck, right? So and they didn't have to suck. I think you could have helped them, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, if we could, well, let's back up for just a second because that actually made me think. When someone comes in the door and there's really anyone can be a trainer. If they have $1,000, they could get a easy quick certification. The quality of trainer is so varied. You got people coming out of school with degrees in kinesiology who have been interning at their collegiate gym like Joey was. And then you have people who weren't doing anything in fitness. They just liked aerobics on the weekends and they, spent $1,000 on a certification. Like, how are we figuring out who are the ones where should we go? Like, what are the good certs? Does it matter if they have like that specific degree? I know we kind of broke it down. Like we're looking for these intangibles, but how do we know as a client, like, who these people are that are the ones that are going to be great and keep us safe?
I think on some level you don't really. I'm not trying to be negative, but like, when I graduated, there were a lot of idiots in my class that got degrees, right? So it's like, but some of the best trainers I've been around have a background in something completely different, like, right? So I think if you're looking at that level, it's a complete crapshoot. It like depends on the person. I'm not saying that from a client perspective that you walk in, you don't know, right? So I think also if you're getting to know the facility, getting to know the business that you're potentially going into train at, like what is their high? I don't know if they'd be able to give you their methods or whatever, but like, what is their hiring process? Do you see a lot of new trainers in there every few weeks? That might not be a good sign, right? So I think, the bigger conversation is like, look at where you're going, right? And I'm not trying to throw any business under the bus, like, or anything like that, but like, do they have a solid staff? Are all their trainers busy? If they have a busy trainer, I want to potentially talk to that guy, right? And it's like, or that girl, or clearly they're doing something right, so it's those little things you got to be, I think, from a client perspective, just, you don't necessarily think about that. You think, oh, personal training sale, I want to buy it. Like, okay, great. Like, like I think from a consumer, you have to be a little more, you have to do your homework a little bit too, right? Because, clearly you have some goals, these places you want, there's somewhere you would like to be from a health standpoint. Like, you don't necessarily just want to hand that over to anybody. Like, so if it was me, I might want to do my homework a little bit in terms of what I'm getting into. Right. So, I think that's something that doesn't come up that often. It's like, I think it's okay to be a little selective.
Darren, I want to kind of jump in here, and this is always like a red flag, and you guys have both done it. I don't know if you realize that, but the second I got on this call, I was a little delayed, but the most powerful thing, if you're a client who walks into a brand new session or are shopping for trainers, listen, are they showing up with a smile? If they're smiling at you right when you walk in, you know that they're 9 times out of 10, they're happy with their life. They're not frowning. They're not like, oh, God, blah, blah. They are happy to see you. That's why everyone loves dogs, because dogs, when is a dog not happy to see you, right? Like, they're constantly wagging the tail. We don't have tails, but if you show up with a smile, like, look out for that. That'll tell you a lot right out the bat.
Wait, what do you mean that was a red flag that we both did? We were frowning?
You were smiling. Like when I first got on this call. You were
so it was a green flag.
Yeah, green flag. Sorry. Green flag.
Joey's like, you guys both did this bad.
No.
Yeah, that actually raises a good point, right? Not that I, support trainers being disingenuous, right? But, if you're having a bad day, the client can't know that. The client does not care that you're having a bad day, right? So it doesn't matter. Outside those doors, you could be having the worst day ever. If you're still committed to training that client that day, they don't know it. You walk in, hey, just like business as usual, right? So I think a lot of younger trainers, right? I'm not getting into the whole generational thing, but like a lot of younger trainers, like they'll walk in like, oh God, can you believe this? That's not the first thing I want to hear out of my trainer's mouth if they're about to if they're about to train me for 45 minutes.
I would say this exact thing is probably my biggest mistake as a younger trainer, because I'm in my early 20s out in LA. I'm going out at night to hang out with my friends, staying out late, and I'm opening the gym also at 6 a.m., which I think from a lot of gyms, that's late, but in LA, that's the earliest you're going to find. But I was always such a grump. I mean, like as soon as someone walked in the door, I was like, why are you here? This is cutting into my nap time. If no one was in this class, I'd be sleeping on the couch. That's in the lobby. But I would say, I mean, looking back, I am like, gosh, I was such a grump. Like I really needed to just like, you know what, this is part of the thing. Like it just got old after a while. I need to put on that smile, be like, everyone's here for a good time. And like, by now, if you came in at 7 a.m., you got the best version of me. It's just the 6 a.m. folks that really were, I feel bad looking back, honestly. But I will say that's one of the pros of virtual training is the trainer doesn't have to be up with you for your 5 a.m. workout. And probably that's for the best, honestly, because we're not always, the peppiest first thing in the morning, potentially. Maybe Joey is.
Oh, man.
Joey's got that pep 3 a.m.
Yeah, I am. That's my go time, baby. That you don't want me at like 9:00 p.m. I am drinking tea and slippers on and head to bed. Ryan, take it. All right, so
I'm more of a midday guy.
Yeah. Can we transition to this last part with? And we really already talked about it, but for aspiring trainers out there listening, and this is Darian brought this up, which is brilliant. Is like, where do they start? Like, how if you can go back to yourself, like when you first started, right? Or anyone listening who is an aspiring trainer. Where would you tell them the first thing to go to or to listen to or whatnot?
That's a great question. So it depends. Like there's two different roads, right? So are we going to college for this? Or are we not going to college? I'll go if you're not going to college. Like clearly there's something is inspiring this decision, right? So you go into a gym, you follow some people, like whatever, right? So if you go into a gym that you really enjoy and you think, hey, clearly there might be someone who inspires you, like talk to that person. I think you need to start to get some industry insight a little bit, like if it's like a trickle, right? Like, hey, what's this like for you? I'm thinking about making this part of something I want to do. I'm thinking about it, like getting my certification and stuff. So like, lay it on me. What do you like? What don't you like? Stuff like, what is the reality of this thing? I think from a college that is starting to do that, like, I feel like my college kind of missed the boat a little bit on that, but I think get realistic expectations, right? Because I think people see like these reality shows and stuff, and it's like, oh, celebrity trainer so-and-so, and they think it's all glitz and glamour. But Darren, you just said it, like you're opening the gym at 6 a.m. and like that time comes every day. So I think it's a matter of like seeing what the reality is, right? And I'm not trying to paint this as a picture of like a bleak picture of like, oh, only get into it if XYZ. Like that's not my thing. I think it's just like find someone to talk to. That's first and foremost, right? So, I wrote in the notes here, like Google search, like there's so many resources out there right now, just to like, what is working as a trainer like, even if you start there, like, right? And, I think it's just talking to people and learning the industry, because every industry's got its own, intricacies and, little quirks and stuff, right? So I think starting to learn that stuff, and I think Darren, you said it earlier, like you were able to kind of talk to people like in that first job of yours, and that you had people there that were willing to help. Like if you find someone like that, shadow them, like learn what they do, see what it's like in a session, like what just the dynamics are, right? Because, it's like I said back in the beginning, it's more than just counting reps and weights. It's more like, what does that session look like? What is the framework of that session? Because everybody's gonna be different. So try to shadow a couple sessions, maybe like a young athlete or an older person or whatever, right? I think the more you can do to learn the industry and what it is you're actually getting yourself into, the better, right? So from the college standpoint, internships, like you have college as like your fallback. I'm going to the university of whatever, like I'm in this program. I'm always looking for internships. I'll work for free. I just want to know the industry. I want to get my foot in the door. So, I think especially in this industry, like we're in the people helping industry. I think, there are plenty of people out there that want to help the next generation. I'd like to think anyway, so I think, again, it's up to the aspiring trainer. Like you have to have some ambition here. Like you have to, learn what, if I was going to get into chemical engineering, like you have to go get a degree. You have to learn what that's all about, right? So it's no different here. Just because you don't necessarily need a degree or have to go to college doesn't make it any different, right? So that's where I'd start.
Yeah. Because the other thing about this industry that's interesting is it's not like really regulated by like one regulating force or anything. There's a number of different certifying organizations that are accredited and things like that. But there's no like, if you become a lawyer, Joey was making this point yesterday, you take the bar and then you can get a job as a lawyer. That's not the case here. However, most gyms, even, coming to work for Trainwell, you have to have a certification regardless of a degree. So whether or not you have the degree in whatever it is, exercise science, kinesiology related field, you also have to have a personal training certification. Which ones? Like how should people, they change all the time, but how do people figure that out?
Well, definitely not one that you can take a 30-minute test and be quote unquote certified, right? So I think, they're not cheap, first of all. Like I don't think go to the bargain basement, certain ones that if something's $99, chances are it's probably not, legit. Obviously you want something nationally accredited. Like I always said, like the best like quote unquote intro certs are like the ACERT or NASM is a little more involved, but that's a really good one. What's the other one?
Will you give us the acronym? Like, what does ACE mean? What does NASM mean for people?
ACE is American Council on Exercise, and NASM is the National Academy of Sports Medicine. AFA was another one, and that one there's too many A's. I couldn't remember all the A's. Is Association Aerobics Association Fitness or something. I don't know. That one I'm not good. But and obviously you get the bigger ones, NSCA, National Strength and Conditioning Association, which has the strength and conditioning certification, but you do need a degree for that one. But they also have a personal training certification. I'm not 100% sure if you need a degree for that one. So, there are some good intro certs. I've always kind of leaned, ACE was my first one. That's the first one I did. It's pretty well-rounded. So it kind of challenges all the essential knowledge that you need. But, it's not impossible,
Yeah.
So, so I think it's important not to beat someone down when they're sitting for their first test,
For sure. Yeah, I agree. Anything else you would say that a trainer, maybe they've, they're talking to the people, they decided they're, what cert they're going to get. How do they get their first job, just out of curiosity? Like, what would you say? I think it can be challenging. A lot of people want to be personal trainers.
Yeah, no, I think at the time I was fortunate. I found a studio in Providence that was hiring, and they took a chance on me. I think being in school for it helped me, so that kind of got them to hire me, I think. But yeah, I think you just like anything else, you might have to apply to a few different places, and I think that's where, if anyone's hiring, because I've been on this side, I didn't just go by a conversation. I did had them train me. I had them do a demo session or whatever. Right. So I think, that's where you shine, and that's where you put that together. Right. I think, if you show, I think Darren, you said earlier in your experience, like you showed that you're willing to do your homework and willing to put the work in, and they could see that without even asking, right? I think it's those little things that make a difference. Like you have to figure out, just like in any job, right? You have to do something that sets yourself apart from, the next guy who's interviewing, right? Because I've interviewed people, they just show up and like, I guess we'll do this. And like, you realize you're looking for a job from me, right? It's like, I'm like, all right, cool. And like, I was nice to him. I wasn't like a jerk or anything like that. But it was almost like, we'll get back to you scenario, right? So I think, but I've also been blown away with people, like in terms of their exercise selections might not have been the greatest, but that I can coach that, right? But like their demeanor was great. Their preparation was great. They had logic in how they formulated a workout. There was just certain things I might have switched up a little bit, but like something like that, like looking for that be that diamond in the rough, right? Right. Because if you're brand new, you're not going to be great. And I think it's important to realize that.
Sure.
Yeah, you need failure. Failure is a great teacher, don't you think? Like when Denzel Washington always says, like, believe it or not, you're gonna suck at something, and the best teacher for that is more reps, and more reps, right?
Oh my God, yeah. Like my first real training job, like after school, after I graduated, I worked at a gym, and it was one of those things where like, I wasn't like ready for it. Like I didn't have the capacity to do all those intangibles, right? Like I was like expecting people to flock my way because I just graduated with my master's degree. But like I ended up getting a job at a studio franchise, and we ended up being extremely busy. Like our studio owner could sell anything to anybody. He was like a big wig for Bally's back in the day, in the heyday. So, and he was a VP of sales. So he got people in the door, man. And like, so you talk about reps, we got busy quick. And like, it was nuts. Like my record for sessions in a day was 17. I did 17 sessions in one day. I was exhausted by the end of the day. My wife, who actually met her there, she beat me by one. She did 18 in one day. It was rough, but I wouldn't trade those years for anything because the amount of reps I got there, unreal. Nothing is was going to substitute that.
Yeah.
As those that's where I learned about those long days, and no one cares how long your day was because they're at 6 p.m. They don't care if you just train 12 people. They don't care. Yeah. They're there for theirs.
And you know what I love about this industry? Because like the three of us, we've been in the industry for a really long time. I've been doing it for like 15 years. And I will say, and I think you would both agree, but you can tell me if you don't, it's a labor of love. No, I mean, very few personal trainers are wealthy. We're in it because we just care about movement. We care about fitness. We care about helping people get moving and changing their lives for the better. And I mean, even here at Trainwell, our main purpose is uniquely care for each of our clients. And I think that all three of us exhibit that. And I would say if you're going to be getting into the industry, you have to care a lot because you're probably never going to come out on the other side with bucket loads of money.
It's definitely a test of staying power. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's like a pickup rider. You know what a pickup rider is? A pickup rider is the guy in the rodeo. Well, you guys are in Colorado, but my wife's from Wyoming. The pickup guys are like the ones in the rodeo when the guys get bucked off the bull. They have to go like caress the bull and save the guy. And they get like severely underpaid, yet they're saving lives. That is what personal training is, okay? Like we're saving lives, we're transforming lives through fitness, we're caring uniquely for each client. But hey, like Darian said, it's a labor of love. So I always tell people I count reps, not dollar bills.
Oh my gosh, we love to hear it. Ryan, this is such a fun conversation, and I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to chat with us about this thing that we all love, that is personal training.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This was fun. This is great. I always like talking shop about this stuff, so anytime.
Go Bears, the Bears.
That's right. No one wins the offseason like the Chicago Bears. I got 8 months to say that.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right. Have a good day, guys.
That is a wrap on today's episode. Dear listener, we love you. We thank you so much for listening. Please check out our show description where you can access that 2 free week trial. And again, if you want to train with Trainer Ryan, you can access his link as well.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.